Thank you so much for joining us on the Dwelling Show. I'm your host, Ola Dantes. I've got an incredible guest today with us. Hey, Abram, how you doing today?
Doing great, Ola. How are you doing?
Doing fantastic. Doing fantastic. Your story is fascinating. You're a very young man doing a lot. So I'm sure you can tell a way better story about yourself. So can you just kind of tell our Dwell listeners a little bit more about who you are, kind of what you've been doing, and what you've been doing lately, actually?
Sure. So I'm 24, just to get that out of the way. I first got interested in real estate when I was pretty young, early teenagers. I had a friend whose dad was a contractor, and he owned a bunch of rentals, and that always fascinated me, And one told him, I said, "Listen, I want to do what you're doing. So what do I need to do?" And he said, "Well, when you save up 50 grand, let me know, and we'll make something happen." So when I turned 18, I got into insurance sales, which is from my dad. That's what he does. And by the time I was just before I was 19, I did save up 50 grand. So I went to my friend's dad and said, "Hey, listen, I got the money. What do we do?" So the first deal I did, and I didn't know what I was doing. We did a new construction flip of 4 townhomes. So we built them up, and initially I was going to keep them as rentals, but I ended up moving from where I was at near Chattanooga, Tennessee, up to around Knoxville. So I ended up selling those, and then it took me quite a while. It took me almost 2 years after that to find the next deal, and it was 20 apartments. I looked, like I said, every possible source, talking to every broker, cold calling, even door knocking, trying to find a good deal. Finally found this one deal from a broker, actually. And one of the things I'll say is a side note really quick. It was very hard at first to get brokers to take me seriously. Like, who the heck are you? You're some young kid. You don't know what you're doing. And there's one store I thought was kind of funny. I was talking to this one broker. I made an appointment over the phone to see this. It was like a 30-unit complex. And when I showed up at first, I could just see his face had dropped. It's like, oh, what is this? Later on, we went out to dinner, and he said, "Well, I'll be honest. At first, when I met you, I thought, is this a joke?" He said, "But man, I'm impressed." He said, "When I was your age, I was just thinking about the next time I could get drunk." And what had helped me really get over that credibility hump was I had went to banks, and I had saved up money from that 2-year period. I sold those first 4 townhomes, made a little bit of money. I had other money saved up, and so I went to banks. I got a pre-approval letter, so that really helped a lot, talking to these brokers initially, getting them to take me seriously. So anyhow, we found this other deal, made an offer. They declined it. Someone else got it under contract, went on for a couple months. It fell through. The listing expired. My broker went to them directly, and then we worked out a deal. So that was the 20-unit apartment complex, and that was in about the middle of 2017 when I did that deal. And then you asked what I'm doing now currently. Since then, I had refinanced those about 13 months later, refinanced those, pulled all my money back, actually more than I put in, which is awesome. And then since then, I am really focused on mobile home parks specifically. I'm currently at 111 rentals total, including the apartments and the mobile home parks. And next month, I'm closing on 2 other parks. One's a 91 unit. The other one is a 54 units. So that'll bring me up to 255 or 256 total as of the end of next month.
A lot going on.
Yeah.
A lot. So let's kind of like rewind back a little bit just for
Sure.
our dual listeners here. There might be someone who is probably like, I don't know, maybe they're 18, 19, or maybe just early in their 20s as well, trying to do what you're doing. So you had this, your friend's dad said, "Hey,
Mm-hmm.
go away and go save up 50 grand." And you did just that,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So was that from your insurance sales job? Is that how you were able to come up with that?
Yeah, 100%. And it's complete 100% commission sales insurance, at least the one I was doing, and it really is character building. Sales skills is people skills. So if you learn how to talk to people and figure out what it is they want or need, and then how to help them get it, that's how you make money in commission sales is by helping the most amount of people. That's how can make the
Yeah.
most amount of money.
Yeah, yeah. It's kind of like that law of averages, right? And the reason I brought that up is
Hmm.
you went into sales, and frankly, for a long time now, sales, that word itself is just kind of like, it's got this like negative connotation, right? It's like, oh, I don't want to do
Yes.
sales. I don't want to be the sleazy, salesman or whatever it is, right? So, but the reason I brought that up, is because if there's somebody young and they have a chance and they're
Hmm.
okay with trying sales,
Hmm.
sales teaches you a lot, right? Teaches you
Hmm.
about rejection. It teaches you about,
Yes.
you have to call X number of people in a day to get one or two, so whatever your ratio is, right? So I think those tricks really does help
Hmm.
in multifamily syndication or multifamily investing generally anyway. So kind of my segue question for you is, of course, you were calling brokers, you said you were cold calling sellers. We do that, yeah, dwelling, and, the sellers say, hey, why are you calling me? Where'd you get my number from? They hang up the phone or
Yep.
whatever. But you don't take it personal because they don't even know you, right? So they're not attacking you. It's just, they don't want to sell, which is fine. So my question
Hmm.
to you is, what were those things that you picked up from, you kind of mentioned the character building, right? But what were those things that really helped you from your day as a, insurance sales broker to kind of, invest in full time?
Sure. So, and actually, I'm actually still doing some insurance, mostly towards the end of the year. Like right now, there's a certain insurance season that runs, so I'm doing that in the midst of these two other closings. But next year, I'm planning to go into real estate investing, mostly full time. So I'm going to transition over to that. But yeah, I think, like you mentioned, how the law of averages. First thing is, don't take it personally. They're not rejecting you. They are rejecting whatever it is you're offering them. Maybe they're not ready yet. And that's one thing as well, as following up is extremely important. Right now, even I've probably got 6 different off-market deals where I've approached these sellers and made, established a relationship with them, and you follow up with them every month or so, or every couple months, however long it is, because eventually they will be ready to sell. So if I'd said, hey, no, they told me no the first time and I just went away and got all sad, well, then you'd never get it. But, I've gotten deals from you continuously follow up. Just like the first deal I did, they said no initially, went with another offer, and then that fell through and the listing expired. But, we were persistent, approached them again, and then we ended up getting the deal. So you have to stay persistent and just keep going. Eventually you will be successful. You cannot just, the first time you hear no, stop, you're not going to accomplish anything.
Yeah, totally agree. Follow up is a huge one. I lost out recently on a $20 million deal in Texas. It was a family that they own a big multifamily business, and I just did not. I didn't do that last follow up, and the listing expired, and then
Hmm.
somebody else got that deal. But yeah, you're absolutely right. Follow up is everything. I've got a few follow up questions as well, right? So you're still doing kind of a little bit of your 9 to 5 on the side or whatever.
Hmm.
I mean, there are a lot of people listening on this show and they have obviously 9 to 5 and they're like, hey, like, how is this guy doing it? Like, what are your tips and tricks to kind of keep that, 9 to 5 while you're, having your side hustle? So I'm a big fan of, holding your job down because real estate it takes time, as you know. So I'm not the first
Hmm.
person to say, hey, quit your job, burn the boats. That's really risky. So how are you
Yeah.
kind of balancing both?
Sure. And Grant Cardone has, I forgot which book of his that he mentioned this, but he said when you work on your second stream of income, don't neglect your first one, because that's usually how you end up. That enables you to get the second one. That we can call it security, whatever you want to call it. That steady stream of income of money lets you go out and pursue the next one. So really scheduling out, okay, I'm going to see this many people today for insurance. Okay. And then I've got this time here. I'm going to be talking to brokers or doing the diligence on the deal I just got under contract. If you're deliberate about pre-planning ahead what you're going to be doing for the next day or the next week, then that lets you, not neglect the first one, but really kind of do both. And it is hard. I mean, if you get to a certain point and you can afford it, hiring an assistant is very helpful to do a lot of the the repetitive tasks like paperwork or things like that. So I would say just scheduling things out and pre-planning ahead. And then once you get comfortable enough and you do have enough income, you can, if you want to, quit your job if it's not making you happy, or if you can do better in real estate or whatever it is you're pursuing, then you can transition full time into your other passion.
Awesome. So let's kind of go to this first deal. So obviously you built the townhomes. You said you were around 19 years old. I'm guessing you got a lot of help. I think that's a pretty good vanilla deal. So let's kind of shift a little bit to the 20 unit.
Hmm.
If you just kind of tell us a little bit more about the numbers, and
Hmm.
if you basically had other investors or it was just kind of money saved up. Just kind of walk us through the deal and the numbers, and
Sure.
kind of like the refi process you mentioned.
Sure. So 20 units, it was 1.3 million was the purchase price. So 65 a door. So once I finally found that deal, I had actually also saved up quite a bit more money from insurance because I was pretty much doing that full time, in the midst of maybe 1 day a week focusing on real estate. So 4 days or really 5 days with insurance and then doing one on real estate. So I had saved up and purchased an office building that was 150,000. So when I took, and this deal was all the apartments, it was just me. So for this deal, I used the office I had, which I bought free and clear with the money I'd saved up. Bought that, and I used that as 10% of the purchase price. I had cash for the other 10%. So the bank took my office, and then the other 10% as the collateral to purchase the 20 unit. So on that deal, the biggest upside was this was a mom and pop deal. It was built. It was owned by the original builders, and one of them had died, unfortunately, in a plane crash, and so the other one could not continue running it. And I'm sure it was probably tragic as well. I mean, it's hard for him to keep going with it. So he decided it was time for him to sell. So the biggest upside on it was the rents had really not gone up since they'd been built. Most of them were built in 2005, so not super long ago. At the time it was about 12 years old, and the rents had stayed the same since then. So as people left, or even before they left, as their leases expired, doing renovations, outside landscaping, just minor stuff, but really just raising the rents up, the average of $150 per unit. So, I mean, times 20, that's a pretty big uh, uh, add to the bottom line, because as rent raises, it goes straight to the bottom line. You don't have any additional costs other than if you turn a unit, then that's capital cost that you put back into the unit. So by doing that, and then also there was an unfinished shed on the property that we were able to convert into a 21st unit. So we added another unit, increased the rents, decreased expenses through things like the trash bill. It was like over $300 a month. Called up the company, got them down to 100 a month, just like that. And it was funny because the previous manager of the complex, I was going through line item with him, asking him about, do you think we can get this down any? Oh no, yeah, that's a steal, 300 a month for the trash. I call him up just like that, $200 off. So
Wow.
looking at every line item and just seeing how can I improve on this? What can I do to make this more efficient? What can I do to make the tenants, residents, have a better place to live, so I can bump the rents up, a higher amount. And then also implementing pet fees, $25 a month per pet, because especially in East Tennessee, and I'm sure in a lot of other markets, pets is a huge. I mean, if you cut out pets, you're cutting out half your renter base. So rather than saying no pets allowed, and then losing on half the renters, and then they just sneak them in anyway, might as well say, okay, you can bring them in, but you're going to pay $25 a month per pet. Also implemented move-in fees instead of deposits. So it's move-in fee is equal to 1 month's rent. So if it's $750 rent plus $750 move-in fee, and that's a move-in fee is great because you don't have to hold it in escrow or anything. It's non-refundable. So when they move out, that gives you the money to turn their unit, and so yeah. But those are the few of the things that we did. I did to increase the NOI and then increase the valuation.
All right. So the first question I'm guessing some of our dual listeners might be thinking is, hey, this guy's like, relatively young, is buying this, 20 unit building, 1.3 million. Is definitely going to have someone backing him, or maybe a mentor. I mean, you obviously just weren't doing all this by yourself. So can you kind of walk us through that? I mean, this is really important for those who are kind of like in that age
Sure.
range thinking of getting into this game. How did you go about doing this? And did you have any mentors?
Yeah. All of my, at least initially, also all the information I got was from podcasts just like this, listening to other people's stories, how they did it, what they were doing, Bigger Pockets, listen to a lot of their podcasts. One in particular, and I was Jake and Gino, and they're also based in Knoxville. So when I heard their story, it was shortly after I'd sold my 4 townhomes. That really pumped me up. And I reached out to them, I got their material, went through all of it. So that they were, I would say they were two of my mentors, and that really got me focused. Okay, I need to be doing multifamily. This is how you do it. Because, they say success leaves clues. You don't have to reinvent the wheel. Just find somebody that's doing what you want to do successfully and just copy what they do over and over until you get the same results. So, I'm looking at, okay, this is how you make a credibility book. This is how you talk to brokers. This is how you talk to bankers. This is how you find deals. This is how you follow up. This is how you negotiate. And just do all those different steps, and be persistent with it, because you're not going to get success right away. Like I said, even from selling the townhomes, it took me almost 2 years to find the deal after that. And it just, you got to keep persistent at it, and then eventually you will become successful.
I love that. I love that. So you did pretty well in terms of this 20 units. You refied, pulled out most of, all of your money and some. So congratulations on that. And then you mentioned mobile home parks. Fascinating.
Mm-hmm.
Why that transition? And, why didn't you just do more of what you did pretty well? I mean, your value add items that I've got listed here are pretty amazing. Shared pet fees, moving fees, which is not refundable. Those are amazing. Why don't you just go look for another 20 unit building and do it over again? Why pivot?
Mm-hmm. So, I try to expose myself to all the different facets of real estate, and it's so vast. I mean, there's obviously residential, there's commercial, there's office, there's notes, hard money lending, all of that. But mobile home parks are actually very similar to apartments, and they're technically multifamily, even though most people don't think of it, because it's still residential. You're renting out units to people. It's commercial property though, so it's the same. It's very similar lending. Most banks, or a lot of the banks that lend on apartments will lend on parks. The biggest appeals to me, because my first reaction when I heard about mobile home parks is, I don't want to buy a freaking trailer park, and I didn't understand it. But really, the business model with mobile home parks is it's just a parking lot for the mobile homes. So you don't want to own the homes, you just own the land underneath it. And the biggest advantages over apartments is apartments, expenses will run typically roughly around 50%. With a mobile home park, if they are paying utilities and they own their home, it's about 30%. Plus, the cap rates are usually about 9 or 10% or higher versus 8 or 7 or lower with apartments. So you've got lower expenses, you've got higher cap rates. The average person, if they own their home in a mobile home park, stays 13 years versus 2 years with an apartment. The biggest thing that was killing me, even with my 20 units, and I say killing me, I mean, the biggest expenses were turnover. When people move out or they just run off in the middle of the night, you got to turn the units $2,000, depending on how much they trash it before they leave, depending on how mad they are at you. And then the repair and maintenance ongoing, they get in a fight and they punch a hole in the wall. With a mobile home park, you don't own the home. So if they get mad and punch a hole in the wall, that's on them. They got to fix it. You don't have to fix the leaky toilets. They own the home. You're just renting them the land underneath it. And so that was the biggest attractor to me to mobile home parks. Another benefit is they have the lowest default rate of any form of real estate. They're usually tied with self-storage for number one. So most of they never they don't default because they're relatively safe investments. I mean, you can have a debt service coverage ratio of 2 to 1, and apartments usually are 1.25 or 1.3. So if you buy a good deal, you find a park with good infrastructure, I mean, they generate, I mean, the average deal does 20% cash on cash. I say average, I mean, a good average deal makes 20%. And just real quick, like a park I bought back in May of this year, I'm at 30% cash on cash return right now, which is unbelievable. Like I wouldn't have believed it even before I parks. But that's the kind of deals you can find. That's a really good deal, in mobile home parks. There's less people looking at them, but there's also fewer of them. So they're almost the same level of competition, but it makes the same thing. Still talking to brokers, cold calling, door knocking, and you can still find good deals.
Wow, fascinating stuff. Fascinating. And congratulations on all your success. So when you made, one last question on the mobile parks though.
Sure.
When you made that transition from kind of apartment investing to mobile home parks, did you also get a mentor, or how did you go about doing that?
Yes, great question. And that was also from listening to a lot of podcasts, I found a guy that was on your show, actually, Frank Raw.
Yep, I know.
Yeah,
Great
he's
guy.
the man.
Yeah.
He's awesome. He's so cool. Yeah. I went to one of his, they call it boot camps. Basically a crash course, 3 days of everything, the history of mobile home parks, investing, and all that. So he was definitely a big mentor. Read a lot of his material, listened to his home study course. And that's the thing as well. People see the end of it. They see the success. Oh, this is great. This guy's done this. You don't see the hundreds or thousands of hours you spend listening to books and, staying up late, looking at deals and talking to the brokers. And it's not comfortable. It's uncomfortable a lot of times to do this. Like naturally, I'm pretty, you say, introverted. So you really have to get out of your comfort zone, if you want to grow and do something, you have to get out of your comfort zone.
Wow. Yeah, I'm glad you shared that. And yeah, I can't remember what show that was that Frank was on, but if you just Google Frank Wolf or just go on the Dwelling page, dwelling.com/show, you'll be able to see that particular episode with Frank. So you've got, apartments under your belt. You're scaling pretty aggressively, actually, your mobile home park, portfolio. What is next for Abraham? What is next?
So next in January, actually, I'm going to be launching a podcast, and also if anyone wants to reach out to me, yeah, you can email me at abraham@capitalcashflow.com, which is also going to be my website. But so launching a podcast, a couple of the park deals, I have a partner on a couple of them, and we're going to be, and he owns parks himself, I own parks myself, but we're going to do a syndication next year for mobile home parks. So that's going to be exciting. Been really studying up on syndication, and the best way to structure it, and win-win for you and the investors. So that's the next step, is transition more into full-time with real estate, launching the podcast, and then doing a syndication. So that's a couple of goals for next year.
Yeah, fantastic. Super excited for you. You're doing, a lot of good things. Yeah, I really appreciate you coming on and talking to us. So we're definitely dwelling into the quick rounds here. These are going to be quick questions, quick answers. You ready, sir?
Yes, let's do it.
All right. First question. What makes Abraham unique? What is that differentiating factor that separates you from the next guy or from the next girl?
I think the belief that you can do it, you can make it happen. And just the persistency and willing to do whatever it takes to make, to get successful. One of the things I do that I've not met anyone else up until this point that's done it is door knocking, where I will literally compile a list of these are all the owners of the mobile home parks. This is their address. And I'll go to their house and knock on their door and say, hi, my name's Abraham. I see you have, park. Would you be interested in selling it? I live in the area, and just the worst they can say is, well, they can cuss you out and slam the door in your face, but it doesn't happen too much. So you stay persistent. If you just keep focused on what it is that you want, and just, don't let the no's get to you. Just keep going. Eventually you will become successful. So I think that's the separator for me, is I will stay persistent in order to eventually, get success.
Yeah, that typically works in the entrepreneurship game. As a matter of fact, you're gonna get, I don't know, probably 99 no's and then 1 yes, and the 1 yes will be the game changer. So next question is, what was the last book that you read, and what was the one thing you picked up from that book?
So I recently reread. It's called Success Through a Positive Mental Attitude. And it was co-authored by Napoleon Hill, who wrote Think and Grow Rich, and then another guy. And the main takeaway from that book is to stay positive. You can attract or repel people based on how you act. Life's the mirror. If you smile at people, they'll smile back. If you're all mean, you got your back hunched down, they're gonna respond and like. So staying positive and thinking like, how can I make this happen? What do I got to do to make this deal happen? Versus being negative. That I think that's very important, is mindset and staying positive.
Yeah, mindset is it's so huge, for us at Dwelling and for me personally. So yeah, I can totally relate. Napoleon Hill is a legend. So last question here is, you've got this apartment building, you're, like I said, buying mobile home parks. What do you do for fun? Other than door knocking, though, right?
Yeah, other than that, so much fun. I occasionally I'll build arcade machines. So my brother, he recently turned 40, and I built him an arcade machine. Like those old retro, like Gallagher, Pac-Man. So I will build those. Do the graphics, do the wiring stuff. That's pretty fun to me. So that's one of the things I like to do for fun.
Yeah, I don't think I've actually ever heard of that before. So you can actually build these things from like scratch and program
Yes.
the. Oh
Hmm.
wow, fascinating.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
Hmm.
definitely a first on the dwelling show for for sure. Yeah. So if there's a dwell listener, maybe they're in the Tennessee market or maybe anywhere in the country, and they're like, "Wow, I like what Abraham is doing, and I want to connect with him." I know you kind of give her your email, but what's the best place people can go find you? Connect with you, know more
Hmm.
about you.
Yeah, sure. So email, once again, it's abraham@capitalcashflow.com. You can also reach out to me on Facebook, Abraham Anderson. I'm on there. You can message me, add me, I would love to talk to you there. Feel free to reach out. I always like talking to other people, and, like you talking about mentors and stuff. A lot of people have helped me along the way, and I'm happy to talk, have a conversation with people that are getting started, or other people doing what I'm doing, or, and already doing what I'm doing. I like to connect with other investors, it's a lot of fun.
Abraham,
It's a team
thank you.
sport.
Yeah, it is a team
Mhm.
sport. Absolutely. Thank you so much. I really appreciate you coming out and giving us your time here today and really adding a ton of value. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me, Ola. It was a lot of fun.